All right, looks like I don't want to hold everybody else up, but I want to welcome everybody to our webinar today. The Ice Cream Association is our mission is really to foster a vibrant ice cream industry by uniting distributors, manufacturers, retailers, and vendors through a collaborative network. When we do this all for the love of ice cream. Nice little tagline there. Yeah, it's truly for the love of ice cream. The association serves as leaders in the organization and the industry for best practices, solution sharing, expertise, and networking, right? We connect every facet of the ice cream industry through the delivery driver and through all corporate leaders, with the goal of strengthening and solidifying the ice cream industry. Last year, in 2025, we had 126 members. 65 of those members were distributors and mobile vendors. 38 manufacturers, and they're not just ice cream manufacturers. We have other beverage, baked goods, snacks, just a whole group of other manufacturers outside of ice cream, as well as we have 23 service providers. And one of those service providers, as a new member, is AIM, who will be here today presenting to you cold chain, dealing with cold chain and fleet moving, right? So I'm excited about that. A lot of us have some challenges in this segment here. So keeping cold chain fleet moving, and I'll let the AIM team take over.
Okay, thanks, Mark. If you want to move to the next slide, that's just the introduction. My name is Jason Olish. I'm with AIM Transportation Solutions. AIM is a fourth generation family-owned transportation company, and we basically help businesses run their fleets more efficiently. For context, we provide full service truck leasing, commercial truck rental, fleet maintenance, dedicated transportation, third-party logistics and brokerage, and also professional shop management. So our goal is to give companies access to reliable equipment, expert maintenance, and operational support without them having to manage everything in-house. So I want to thank everyone for the opportunity and everyone joining us today. We all know that transportation is one of those parts of the business that only get attention when something goes wrong, right? A warm trailer, a missed delivery window, or a truck sitting down either on the side of the road or in your yard during a peak demand week. So our goal today is to make this practical. We'll talk about what some cold chain fleets are dealing with right now, how regulations and equipment planning are changing the conversation, and what strategies can help protect uptime for you. So what I'd like to have you do is think about a summer delivery route where a truck leaves a yard full of frozen product. It's got 3 or 4 or 20 or 30 customer stops on it. If that reefer starts acting up halfway through the route, the problem isn't just a maintenance issue at this point. It becomes, your product integrity, customer service, driver downtime and satisfaction, and potentially a brand issue for you. So that's the lens we want to use today as we go through this presentation. So let's start by grounding this in the types of cold chain operations that share these same pressures. So that's this slide here. So when I say cold chain, we all know what we're talking about. It's a wide range of operations, but they all have one thing in common. The equipment has to perform exactly when it's needed. Ice cream manufacturers, they're protecting frozen product integrity. Dairy processors are working with tight time windows. Frozen food distributors often have complex multi-stop, multi-temperature routes. Grocery, food service, beverage fleets, they all have their own service expectations, and many have seasonal volume swings. For example, an ice cream fleet may be relatively predictable most times of the year. Then you see a major volume spike around warm weather, like we've been experiencing here in the Midwest, holidays, or, when you run a promotional period. That's usually when stuff breaks down too. And that's where your maintenance planning shows up. And any weaknesses in that are really going to be exacerbated. So a battery issue, a liftgate fails, a reefer fault, or even a tire problem can really throw off the route at the worst possible time for you. But the common denominator is that product quality depends on reliable equipment, predictable maintenance, and fast response. So your fleet strategy has to support that reality. Go to the next slide if you can. So just for everybody's edification, we tried to do this where we didn't have to say go to the next slide, but we were having some technical issues, so we're gonna punt and just move through it. So So there's four challenges that we hear, over and over again from temperature controlled fleets. First is product integrity, as I mentioned before. So if temperature control is compromised, the impact can go well beyond the cost of the repair of the vehicle. Second is uptime pressure. Refrigeration, electrical, liftgate, and powertrain issues, they can all disrupt routes very quickly. Third is cost visibility. It's very, very difficult to budget when emergency repairs, aging equipment, and even labor shortages can create surprises. The thing that I always say to customers is, did you budget for a $30,000 engine replacement this year in your 10-year-old truck? It's really hard to do that. So, the fourth is, and becoming more increasingly interesting, is compliance. You guys are all aware of the food safety compliance, DOT requirements, the new emission rules, and even the maintenance documentation that we're soon going to all have to provide. And all those things require discipline and some people to manage it. So you have a driver doing a pre-trip inspection, and you notice, the driver's out there and he notices that the reefer's not pulling down to the right temperature. So you now have to make a decision. Do you delay that route? Do you unload and reload the product into another unit, which is going to cause delays? Do you call somebody for service, or do you just risk a customer issue by running the truck? That decision is much easier when there's a clear process, good maintenance history, and fast support. So the question becomes, how do we protect uptime while planning for what is changing in the market? Next slide, please. So the refrigerated fleet market is challenging because, there's several pressures are hitting at the same time. Equipment costs are skyrocketing, especially when you add in refrigerated bodies, reefer units, lift gates, multi-temps, and other specialty components. Availability and lead times matter because the tractor or chassis is only part of that equation. As we all live through, through the COVID days, and it's starting to tighten up again, the body and the reefer unit and the upfit schedule can drastically affect the timing of a new piece of equipment coming in as well. Drivers and technician labor, they're also playing a major role. So even if a company has equipment available, it still needs people to operate it and people who can keep it running. So this is one of the places where a partner like AIM can bring value, because we work across leasing, maintenance, rental, and shop support. We can help customers look at the whole fleet picture instead of just only one line item. So in real life, that might mean helping a refrigerated fleet evaluate replacement timing, maintenance exposures, seasonal rental backup needs, or whether full service leasing could reduce risk during a peak season. And you may think, we'll replace these units next quarter or in the fourth quarter, only to learn that the body timing is going to push that delivery out several months past when you thought. In the meantime, your older units keep running through another peak season, you have that risk out there, and you're increasing the chances of roadside events and money spent on repairs unnecessarily. So we found the best fleet strategy is to no longer only about ownership. It's about looking at risk, uptime, capital expense and timing, and operational flexibility. Next, please. So what's coming up now, we've been talking about it for several years, but now it's right around the corner. These emissions and regulatory changes are important because they influence acquisition planning, maintenance complexity, and documentation. The EPA's 2027 heavy-duty rules are a major planning marker for fleets evaluating replacement timing. State-level programs, especially for those of you that operate in California or any of the other jurisdictions that watch and follow California closely, that can also affect how your companies think about future fleet composition. So it doesn't mean that, every refrigerated fleet needs to make the same decision, obviously. A fleet that only runs in one region or one state or is more local may have a different exposure than a fleet with multi-stop operations. But everyone should be asking the same questions. When do we need equipment? How will technology change affect maintenance? What training will technicians need? And what documentation should we be prepared to maintain and present when asked for it? So imagine buying a new piece of equipment and then realizing your shop team hasn't even been trained on the new after treatment or electrical systems. It's a big deal. If they can't fix it, then the truck's not worth it to you. The asset may be brand new, but your downtime risk is still there and increases if your maintenance infrastructure isn't ready to maintain it. That's why pre-buy planning has become such a common discussion. Next, please. So a pre-buy strategy is not simply buy trucks before costs go up. If everybody followed that lead, everybody would buy trucks every year because, you know, I've been in the industry for 35 years and they've never gone down. So it should be a total cost and an operational risk assessment. You know, you may consider pre-buying to secure familiar technology before it changes, you know, avoid potential acquisition cost increases that happen every single year, or you replace aging units before new standards take effect. But that decision needs to be validated against your actual fleet profile. So some questions you might ask yourself, you know, how old are my units? What mileage or engine hours are they carrying on the reefer? You know, what routes are most critical? Are there seasonal peaks where downtime is especially painful? Or do body or reefer lead times change my timing overall? You know, refrigerated fleet might pre-buy tractors, but forget that, or, you know, ignore the fact that trailers, bodies, and reefer units have their own timing. So now the tractor's available and you've got a brand new tractor, for instance, but the completed unit, it's not ready when the business needs it. Or, you know, the opposite could happen where the fleet holds on to older units too long, waiting to make that decision, waiting for some clarity to come, and your repair costs spike and your maintenance costs spike right during the busiest months of your year. So what we found is the best fit approach is to model multiple scenarios. You know, replace some now, extend those that make sense carefully, lease where applicable, maybe outsource maintenance, or phase in your purchases over time. Next, please. So this slide is really meant to be a discussion tool, not a recommendation that one model is always best. You know, private fleet ownership gives the most control, obviously, but it also carries more capital responsibility, admin work, and internal maintenance burden. Full service leasing can help with life cycle support and cost predictability. Dedicated logistics or outsourced models such as ProShopper, you know, any outsourced maintenance program, it can reduce your internal distraction because face it, you know, trucking and transportation isn't most of your company's core competency. So our full service leasing model is built for fleets that want reliable equipment, predictable maintenance support and spend, and fewer surprises. For a refrigerated operation, that can be especially valuable because downtime is not just inconvenient, it can put product, customers, drivers, and delivery commitments at risk. So for an ice cream producer, for instance, owning equipment may make sense if you've got a strong internal maintenance and stable lanes. But if they're expanding into new markets, dealing with technician shortages or vacancies, or trying to make seasonal peaks less painful, leasing or a managed maintenance program may give you more flexibility. The right answer really starts with asking better questions. Last slide for me, please. Next one. So these are some of the questions we recommend asking before making any fleet strategy decision. What percentage of your fleet is approaching replacement age? Do you even know what that replacement age should be? Which routes or seasons create the highest downtime risk? You know, how quickly can the team respond to refrigeration failures? Are maintenance costs predictable enough for budgeting? You know, going back to the blown engine, $20,000 or $30,000. Does your organization have the technician capacity and training it needs to even deal with new technology? You may discover that only 10% of your units are creating 40 or 50% of your overall maintenance spend and 50 or 60% of your roadside events. That really changes the conversation. So instead of saying, well, we have to replace our entire fleet or react to every single small repair, you can really focus on the assets and routes that are creating the most risk and the most headaches for you. So what I would ask you to do is, as you read through this or look through this, think about one or two of the questions on that slide that would create the most valuable internal discussion for your team. We have many customers that have a mixed fleet. They own some equipment, they lease some equipment, depending on location, length of routes, on-site maintenance support, things like that all go into that decision. Another aspect to look at is setting up a separate transportation division to gain some tax advantages and mitigate risk to your core competency company. So I don't know if anyone on the call or anyone on the webinar has something like that currently structured, where they've got a transportation arm that supports and runs under a different umbrella than the ice cream side or the food service side. If not, it's definitely something to look into. There's some tax advantages to it, and it also mitigates quite a bit of risk. So if you're interested in that, I guess you can reach out to us and we can point you in the right direction. We're not experts in that, but we know people that are. So I'm going to transition now and move over from fleet structure and things like that into more of a maintenance trend. And to do that, I'm going to introduce Mike Hecker. He's AIM's Director of Managed Maintenance and Pro Shop, and he'll take it from here.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. So I'm Mike Hecker, AIM's Director of Managed Maintenance. My team is responsible for AIM's on-site professional shop management division and managed maintenance program. Our portfolio is exclusively the maintenance of customer-owned equipment. So cold chain maintenance is becoming more and more specialized. Reefer reliability requires proactive checks before peak demand. Data-driven PMs can help fleets move away from a purely calendar-based maintenance and towards maintenance informed by inspection results, fault codes, and repeat issues. Technician skill set is also changing. Modern refrigeration units require diesel knowledge, electrical troubleshooting, refrigeration expertise, and diagnostic discipline. A small electrical issue can look minor at first. Maybe it's an intermittent fault or a liftgate that works most of the time. But in a refrigerated route environment, that small issue can become a failed delivery, a driver delay, or a missed customer appointment. Compliance documentation also matters. If it was inspected, repaired, or replaced, the record should be easy to find. That'll help down the road with audits, warranty, budgeting, and root cause analysis. So on the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about what does good maintenance discipline look like day to day. So this slide breaks maintenance into 4 moments: before the route, during the route, after service, and monthly review. Before the route, the basics matter. Reefer operation, set points, fuel or def, tires, lights, and liftgate function. During operation, drivers and dispatch should have a clear process for reporting fault codes, temperature deviations, and repeat concerns. After service, documentation is critical. What was found, what was corrected, what parts were used, and whether the issue is recurring. AIM's maintenance programs and shop support can help bring structure to that process. The value is not just fixing a truck when it breaks, it's helping fleets stay ahead of PMs, spot repeat issues, document repairs, and keep the equipment ready for the next route. So, imagine a route where the same trailer has had 3 temperature complaints in 6 weeks. If each event is treated as a separate repair, the pattern may be missed. But if the monthly review catches it, the team can ask whether there's a recurring reefer issue, a driver process issue, sensor issue, or a route use issue. The goal is to reduce avoidable breakdowns before they become a product quality or customer service issue. And on the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about downtime. So reducing downtime is really a cycle. It's plan, prevent, respond, and learn. Planning means replacing or rotating units before the risk spikes. Preventing means using PM discipline and inspections to catch concerns early. Responding means having a clear road service process when something unplanned happens, and it does. And learning means reviewing the data afterward so the same problem doesn't keep happening. A refrigeration trailer that breaks down on a Tuesday morning is an urgent problem. But if that same unit had multiple open PM exceptions, prior issues, repeat driver DVR write-ups, the breakdown may have been predictable. The value is connecting those dots before the route fails. For cold chain carriers, downtime is not only a maintenance cost. It can rapidly become a product risk event or a customer relationship issue. One of the biggest factors in making this cycle work is managing your workforce capacity, something that we touch on in the next slide. So diesel technician and mechanic recruiting remains extremely competitive, and refrigerated fleets often need an even broader skill set. A technician may need to understand diesel systems, electrical diagnostics, refrigeration units, lift gates, telematics, emissions-related components. It's an exhaustive list. It's a lot to ask, especially when experienced technicians are hard to hire and retain. A company may have trucks available, routes planned, and customers ready, but if the shop is understaffed, preventative maintenance starts slipping, small repairs wait longer, and drivers lose confidence in the equipment. Eventually, the fleet feels unreliable, even if the assets themselves are not the problem. So, recruiting, training, certification, and retention are part of fleet strategy. Professional shop management models or outsourced maintenance support can help reduce some of the HR and recruiting burden, especially when a company wants to be more predictable on their service levels. To manage this well, fleets need visibility into the right metrics, something that we're about to touch on. So a dashboard is only useful if it drives action. Out-of-service units tell you what is unavailable and why. Preventative maintenance exceptions show where preventative maintenance is slipping. Open breakdowns show what is actively disrupting operations. Labor and part spend can reveal which units, locations, or components are creating cost pressure. This is where AIM can help turn fleet data into practical next steps. Through fleet analysis, lifecycle planning, maintenance reviews, and shop support, AIM can help customers identify which units are creating the most risk, where PM discipline needs attention, and where a different fleet structure may improve uptime or cost predictability. If a fleet leader opens a report and sees that 3 units are down, the next question should be, are they waiting on parts, technician time, vendor response, approval, or diagnostics? Each one of those answers leads to a different action. The goal isn't to provide more reports for the sake of reporting. The goal is faster, better decisions, schedule, prioritize, repair, review, and adjust. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Jason.
All right, so Mike's way better at the transition portion of this than I am, so he set it up so we didn't have to say next slide. I'll have to work on that. So where can AIM support the strategy? Obviously, like we talked about at the very beginning, we provide full service leasing, fleet maintenance programs, professional shop management, Pro Shop, which is what Mike handles, 24/7 road rescue coordination across the continental United States, actually North America, and then fleet analysis and life cycle planning. So I guess we move to the next, one last there. So questions, discussion. I mean, what's the biggest refrigerated fleet challenge today? Is your fleet getting older? Are you starting to have maintenance issues? Have you already ordered new equipment to get ahead of the 2027 emission standards? Is that something that you've even addressed yet? Do you have a plan for it? And where would you need some assistance in that? And where would better maintenance visibility help your operation most? So those are some of the things that we want you to take away from this. And then one last slide, I think there's a QR code on it. So this, we'll leave this up here for a minute. We're super excited to be new members of this association. We want to thank Eduardo from Great Dane from introducing us to it, or for introducing us to the group and getting us involved. We're very much looking forward to meeting everybody at the November conference in Florida. I'm in Northeast Ohio, so Florida November is a lot better than Youngstown, Ohio. I could promise you that. So, but in the meantime, feel free to scan this QR code for more information. It's not a salesy, nobody's going to reach out to you unless you ask them for, but you can also, follow us on LinkedIn, which there's an attachment on the QR code to do that. You can see more information on us as a company, and several other upcoming free webinars on topics like safety, DOT and government regulation, compliance, maintenance, recruiting, and retention. Our marketing team has developed that over the last 5 or 6 years, where we provide free webinars, not just to our customer base, but to anybody that would be interested in signing up for them. We've got a lot of people with a lot of expertise in our company. So we use that kind of as just a service that we provide free of charge. Helps obviously get our name out there, but it's also, spreading the good word of what's and keeping people in the know. So the next one coming up is in August, and it's going to cover probably the hottest topic in our industry, which is that new engine emission regulations that are going to take effect in January of 2027. In my 35 years in the industry, it's probably the biggest hurdle that I've seen because of they've moved the goalpost so many times that it's now finally starting to, it's really happening. So it went from kind of an amoebic thing that may or may not happen to it's going to happen to it's not going to happen, and now it really is. So it's something we definitely need to take seriously as an industry. And if you have some expertise that you can lean on with a company like us, we're more than happy to help out and advise, even if you don't do business with us, we're there to give advice. So that's all I have. If you want to turn it back over to the folks from the association to finish it up.
So thank you, AIM team, for kind of giving us a little bit of education on the cold chain supply for fleet. And does anybody have any questions for the AIM team? All you fleet guys don't have any questions.
Just means we were thorough during the initial part.
Yeah. I don't see anything in the chat.
And Mike and I will be attending the conference. Obviously, we spewed a ton of information to you guys. What do we see happening to DEF? Mike, can you probably maybe answer that, or what do you see happening to DEF in the future?
I mean, so that's some of what we're hearing from the OEs is for 2027, they're kind of rearranging how the engine model works, where the exhaust system isn't integrated into the actual engine process itself. And we're looking at, or the industry is looking at moving that to a separate, it's not actually feeding into the engine, letting the engine do what it needs to do and then cleaning it after the fact. So I don't see DEF going away anytime soon. Plus, you've just got the sunk cost of it's its own industry now, and there's jobs and money on the line, and people tend to plant their flag and make sure that there's a reason for that to exist, even if you could theoretically work it out. But for the time being, it is a cost-effective way to meet emission standards. So while the engines are changing, I don't see anything happening with DEF itself going away in the I don't call it midterm future.
Yeah, the different engine OEMs are taking somewhat slightly different approaches to meeting the standards that are out there. But it all comes down to you either run the engine dirtier and treat it with more after treatment afterwards, or you heat the engine up and run the engine hotter and use less DEF at the back end. But it's it's tomato. It's still going to end up being one may get a little bit better fuel economy, but you're going to use more DEF. So does it offset? And we really don't. That's where we look at it as we'll be a consultant to you. We'll bring the experts in and let the customer make the best decision for what their needs are. We're not beholden to any one engine manufacturer or brand of truck. It's the best truck for the right application.
Good question, Nick. Any other questions?
Yeah, I don't know who Nick is, but I can't wait to meet him because he gave us a good question there.
All right. Well, as the team mentioned, our next summit is in November in St. Petersburg, Florida. Gorgeous place at the Vinoy. We're excited. Of course, you guys know how excited I get about our annual charity golf tournament. So please check the website, register for the golf tournament. Oh, we have another question from Tom Holder. Are you familiar with cold plate systems?
We are, yes. they're, not as prevalent, I wouldn't say, in the leasing industry, for whatever reason. But again, we can spec and provide and maintain, pretty much whatever, whatever model you're using. I know there's advantages and disadvantages to cold plates, but I guess the short answer is yeah. I mean, we're familiar with them. They used to obviously be a lot more prevalent than they are now.
Yeah, to kind of piggyback on that, Jason, especially in our managed maintenance world where it's all customer owned equipment, a lot of that is heavily specialized. So we do see a extremely broad range of equipment, a little bit above and beyond what your standard leasing operation is going to have in their portfolio. So we're really making sure that our technicians are skilled for each individual application. If that involves cold plates, it's making sure that our team's familiar with those. If it's a specialized Perky system for a liftgate, blower systems, material handling equipment, we're kind of all the oddball equipment for a leasing spec operation.
Cold plates are king in Texas.
Yeah.
Thanks for the question, Tom. Any other questions?
I would actually look forward to having a more, I guess more than a 30-second conversation with somebody, because one of the things I like to do is not to be an expert in everything and admit when you don't know something as much as you should. So I'd love to hear the pros and cons of that versus, the traditional diesel driven or engine driven reefer unit. Our service area, we have national service. As I said, we're the largest privately owned truck rental and leasing company in North America. We've got over 50 brick and mortar operations across the, mainly in the Midwest. Obviously, that's where we're headquartered here in Youngstown, Ohio. So we're very strong in Ohio. We've got 13 locations in all of Ohio, Indiana, Chicagoland, Buffalo, New York, down into the DC and into the Southeast, a little bit into Georgia, and then we jump over a little bit of the Midwest, and we're out in the Denver area with a couple locations, and then several locations in Phoenix, Arizona. And we've got other operations all in Texas, and our dedicated logistics side of our business has standalone business, standalone operations where maybe outside of our footprint as well.
Yeah, and one thing, like if you do look AIM up on even our website service map, the accounts that roll up on our on-site professional shop management program, because they're not open to the public, we don't list all of those. But we have on-site shops running all the way from Yuma, Arizona to Landover, Maryland. So we're not present in every state, but we are running basically from the Arizona-Mexico border to DC.
No. And just one last thing to do, we're part of the National Lease family of companies. So we've got reciprocal service locations that number over 1,000. So anywhere that you would go, if you leased a truck from us in Youngstown, had that truck in, Omaha, Nebraska, and it had a service issue, you would pull right into, we would manage the breakdown. We would tell you where to go. You'd pull into one of our affiliate locations, and they would treat it just as if it was their truck. So that's how we compete on that national scale, is through the reciprocal service. I didn't catch that last question. I'm sorry.
Oh, and Tom, to your last question, do we maintain company-owned fleet? As far as like my division here at AIM, that is all we touch. It's customer-owned equipment. So, and then on the leasing side, I'd let Jason take that.
Yeah, we'll lease everything from basically a cargo van up to a tandem axle sleeper. So yeah, everything refrigerated, non-refrigerated. We do have we have a strong presence in the refrigerated market for whatever reason, specifically in Ohio. We've got an ongoing training program, and I'm not going to get too deep in the weeds, but we have a Thermo King trainer that actually is part of our company. He used to work for us, went to work for Thermo King. So how we keep our technicians and develop them is through a pretty intense training program that increases their skills. I always like to say, we like to take a C mechanic and over a 3 to 5 year period, turn them into an A mechanic where they can do diagnostics and some more high level stuff. And, people like money, but they also like career development and to feel like that the company is investing in giving them more job skills. So, that's how we as a company approach that. And we reward them both financially and, just with opportunities by taking part in a pretty detailed and in-depth training program, both online and in person.
Tom, I think I'm going to set you up directly with Jason and Mike, so you guys can have a nice conversation afterwards, because you seem to be asking all the questions for the team there.
Yeah,
So I
love it.
appreciate that, Tom, for keeping these guys on their toes. But I do want to say that they'll have an exhibit at our summit, so you guys will be able to come out and visit them. And if you have any further questions, you can work with them directly as one of our current members now. And again, their whole presentation was geared towards educating you guys on the differences between leasing, purchasing, and what's to come in the future with the fleet for cold chain. So excited about what they presented. So thank you, gentlemen. The summit is again in November 2nd through the 4th in St. Petersburg. Our membership has continued to grow, and we're looking forward to a great year, as we always have every year. It seems to get better and better. But St. Petersburg is a gorgeous place. And I will not mention we have so many other sponsorship opportunities to take part, a la carte membership sponsorships that we have with the association. And I would be remiss if I don't talk about the golf tournament, because you guys know how much I love golf. So our golf tournament will be on Sunday prior to the opening ceremony. So it's for a good cause. As usual, you guys know we always do something for our charitable event. So this is Give Kids the World. So all proceeds will go towards Give Kids the World. And we have several sponsorships left for that golf tournament, as well as team spots as well. So if you haven't registered yet, go to the website and register. Make sure you register for the convention. Rooms are going quick, so you don't want to wait till the last minute to get your room. So visit the icecreamassociation.org for more information. So thank you again, gentlemen, and Jessica. I know she's there somewhere behind the scenes for helping put this together with Eduardo. And again, if you have any further questions, this will be up on our website for future for members to download and review again. But you have their QR code if you have any further questions directly to them. And thank you again for taking part of our webinar.